This webinar was recorded for subrecipients of the Tennessee Strong Families Grant on March 25, 2026. Dr. Angie Elkins, Professor of Sociology and Social Work at Walters State Community College, was our subject matter expert presenter. The session discussed how to responsibly use AI to improve productivity, planning, training, research, and communication, explored safe client support uses of AI, and gave participants an opportunity to practice writing effective prompts to improve accuracy and usefulness of AI output. The slides and reference materials are posted on our webpage for your reference and review. We kind of gave a disclaimer as we started last week, but just wanted to remind everybody that we thought this topic of AI would be really timely as there's many new digital tools that are being introduced into social work, and we really need to understand what they are and how they work to safely incorporate them into the work that we're doing. And so, like we mentioned last week, today's session is going to be purely informational and serve as exposure to these tools, and it's not meant to approve specific uses for your organization or suggest using specific AI platforms or technology. And so we're going to talk about some of those specific tools today, but examine them from the perspectives of accuracy, fairness, and ethics. And so our presenter back for our second session today, Dr. Angie Elkins, is a tenured professor of sociology and social work at Walters State Community College. She holds degrees in sociology, criminology, instructional design, and education, and is currently pursuing her Master's of Science in Social Work at the University of Memphis. In addition to her teaching, Dr. Elkins supports faculty in course design and development with a focus on integrating innovative practices such as AI and undergraduate research. So we're happy that Angie is joining us for session 2 today, and thank you all for being here. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Angie.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. We had a great session last week. I really enjoyed the conversations we had and the questions that you guys asked. So please feel free to ask questions, shout out, whatever it is. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And so today we're going to talk about what tools are there, what uses there might be, and practical skills that you might need to have for AI. Last week we talked kind of about what it was and how it worked and some of the ethics associated with it. Today we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to have some practical exercises you can look at. After last session, we also sent out a flyer about developing a AI plan for your organization. If you're high up in your organization, the things you want to include on that. So if you have questions on that, let me know as well. But we're going to start out today, our recap from session 1. We talked about what AI is and isn't. We talked about the ethical risks. We talked about protecting client confidentiality. And we talked about using AI as a support tool, not a decision maker. And so those are things that we want to keep in mind as we go through the session today, looking at, it's not going to make decisions for me, but it can support my decisions. Today, we're going to look at recognizing AI tools and LLMs and understanding how they differ, using AI to improve productivity, including planning, training, research, communication, writing effective prompts to improve accuracy and usefulness of AI, and then maybe explore some safe client support uses of AI while still protecting that confidentiality and those concerns. And I didn't number these goals because they kind of go all over the place and there's a lot of overlap in them. So we're going to see bits and pieces of each one throughout. But keep in mind those ethical guardrails from that first session are still important and are still applied. So our first goal is looking at our AI tools, large language models, and understanding what they are and how they differ. So we have this is it AI thing that we think about. Is this AI? What is AI doing? ChatGPT, we know is AI. Grammarly, a lot of our students are like, I don't know if Grammarly is AI or not. It is. Okay. Canva Magic Design is AI. Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, even predictive text on your phone or your email autocompletes. Those are all examples of AI as well. Your Siri and your Alexa, they're AIs. And then even Netflix streaming recommendations. It looks at what you've watched in the past and predicts what you might want to watch in the future. So AI is all around us. Every one of those things is AI. and has AI involved in a lot of the things in our world. So we're seeing it more and more. When we're looking at AI, there's two kind of things that we look at. The first one is our AI tools. These are predictive AI or data analytics. It analyzes data to identify patterns, predict outcomes, looks at historical program data. It can do like risk assessments, prioritization, eligibility screening, if you have a program in your organization that is designed for that and approved for your organization. The other option is large language models, which is our generative AI. These are things that creates new content. So if you went to AI and said, make a picture of myself, that thing that's gone around Facebook for ages, like make a picture of me based on what you know, that is a generative AI program. It is creating new things. So these kind of data sets or these kind of programs are they're using data sets, large amounts of text to learn language patterns. It supports writing, it supports brainstorming, training materials, communications. So your examples here might be ChatGPT or Gemini. I use ChatGPT most often. That is what I am most familiar with, but there's lots of ones out there. A lot of the faculty members here on campus prefer Perplexity as a good AI program, and they like that because it gives you resources when they use it. And so that's a really good one to look at too. So when we're looking at AI as a support tool, both types of AI can help support human services work, but neither one's going to replace your professional judgment. And so predictive AI is going to help you analyze data. I had 500 clients this month and 37% had food insecurity. Okay, what can I do with that data? What can I think about with that data? Your generative AI helps generate your content or your ideas. So generation might be, I'm working on a support group for students to stay in school. Help me come up with some ideas for how I can work with those students. So those are the two main ways we look at AI as a support tool. Some of you may have AI embedded in systems that you're already using. There may be case management systems that have AI built into them, risk scoring programs, eligibility screening, data analysis. These may be in the systems we're already using. I'll go over a couple here in a little bit. But in my field in education, we have AI detectors that are AI built into our online classes. And so we're using AI to look to see if students are using AI. And it's kind of hilarious when I think about it. So AI tells me if my students used AI or not. But many systems, many programs out there do have AI tools built into them, and you may see them more in the future too. The first one I want to talk about is the AFST, which is the Allegheny Family Screening Tool. This is from Pennsylvania. It is a predictive risk modeling tool. It's been in place since 2016, so it's been in place quite a long time, and it helps assist with child welfare hotline screenings. And so somebody calls in and reports child abuse or a concern. This program helps the staff decide whether it should be screened in for investigation or screened out. And it walks them through the process, answering questions, getting more information. The score it gives does not replace our professional judgment. We have to always remember that. It just provides additional information to support decision making. This program does show how your data analytics and algorithms can support your decisions, but it also raises questions about, like, is this biased? Are we being transparent in making these decisions? Who is like over this? Who is the one who trained this program to make sure it was correct? And so those are questions you want to think about with any of these kind of programs. The next one is VISPDAT. Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. Now, why couldn't they come up with an easier name? We love our abbreviations, I know. But this was a screening tool used by lots of different service systems And the goal was helping to prioritize housing resources for people who were experiencing homelessness. It was often used in the coordinated entry systems across the US to look at vulnerability and service needs. It worked by service providers asking a set of structured questions about areas like housing history, health conditions, safety risk, and it generated a score indicating level of vulnerability. Now, with this program, this was early on in AI, and a lot of people are like, okay, that score's right. That's it. That's our decision. And that's what screwed this program up. Okay. While it did help prioritize who may receive limited housing resources, other housing assistance programs, that there were problems associated with it. And so in late 2020, they said, we're getting rid of this tool. We're not using it anymore. And so we have to be aware anytime we're using a tool, is this still doing what it's supposed to do? Is it still doing what we need it to do? Some of the concerns that were raised with this one is it did not reliably predict housing outcomes. There were racial disparities in scoring that were unintentional but had real world effects. And many people just said, this is the score it gave, and that's what we're going to go with. And they didn't use that professional judgment. So I push that professional judgment a lot on this. So programs like those two, it is always important to think about, your bias and your equity in assessment scores. Are we scoring people one way because of their race, because of their ethnicity, because of their gender? What is impacting the scores? And we have to think about that. All of the experts out there emphasize that these can be supportive, but do not replace professional judgment. Your algorithms can help organize information, but we have to be the one who interpret the results and make the final decisions. We can't put it all on the system. So these are designed to support your professionals, not to replace them. So that's kind of a overview of AI and how all of that works. Our second goal is to use AI to improve productivity, including planning, training, research, and communication. And so I have some hands-on things that we're going to think about. I'm going to go through some activities here, and I want to show you like different ways you can use AI that will help you overall. And so administrative stuff, we all know the administrative stuff that we hate. Somebody's got to write the meeting agendas. Somebody's got to summarize long documents. Even brainstorming or creating program outlines. This could be really a good way that AI could help you out. It can help with email drafts. It can help simplify complex language. I know because I have a ton of degrees, sometimes I speak at a level that's a lot higher than my students. And I have to continually remind myself, do my students know this word? How can I word this a little bit easier? And so simplifying complex language can be really important if you're working with clients who maybe have limited English or read or write at a 5th grade level. I don't know if y'all know, but the average American reads and writes at an 8th grade level right now. And that's pretty low compared to what paperwork we send out. And so you want to think, can our students read this? Can our clients read this? It's also really good at editing tone. Sometimes we get angry and frustrated, and that comes out in our emails or our letters. And AI can help reduce that. You can put it in there and say, make this sound less angry, make this sound more supportive, those kind of things. It can also help with training and education. It can help you create worksheets for your clients. It can help you develop discussion questions to have in a group session. It can draft learning objectives. Program development, it can brainstorm community programs. What can I do to solve poverty in Cotton County, Tennessee? What are some of the things out there that might help with this? It can generate ideas for outreach, and it can also help draft your grant language. What do I always say though? Review it. Make sure you're reading it. Don't just use it and copy and paste and send it. So AI can draft it, but the human still needs to review it. So we're going to do a short little activity here. I want you to pull up an AI program of your choice, whatever it is you might use, and just type in, create a short description for a group therapy session on anger management, and see what comes up. And I'll give you a few minutes here to do this. Chat GPT is common, Perplexity,
I can throw a
Google.
couple. I can throw a couple in the chat for them to
Okay,
choose from through Angie. Just
that would
send
be
them out.
awesome.
Yeah.
And this is what Chat GPT gave me, so you can see how it gave the description. Okay, as those are coming out, as you're seeing them, go ahead and put some of them in the chat so we can see what you got back from yours. Okay. The group therapy session provides a supportive space for participants to explore the roots of their anger, understand emotional triggers, learn healthier ways to respond through discussion, guided discussion, practical coping skills, skill building exercises. Members work together to improve emotional regulation, communication, stress management. The goal is to help participants express anger constructively and strengthen their overall well-being. I like that one. Okay. I won't read them all to you, but you can kind of skim through and see what other people have come up with.
I was gonna say I
Um,
like that Heather's says join us for a supportive
Join
group
us.
therapy session.
Oh,
That's kind of cool that it gave like a
yeah.
warmer
Like
focus,
it
you
would
know.
be on a flyer. Hey, look
Yeah.
at this awesome stuff we're doing. Yeah. Oh, okay. I like how Jessica said cope with intense emotions instead of anger management, because sometimes anger management is like, oh, so it may be better to word it differently. Okay. Understanding roots of anger, recognizing triggers. Okay. And so these are all good examples of, something you could build on. Again, don't take it just as it is, but build on it. Think about what you could add. You could even ask your Chat GPT or whatever program, you could ask it to say, can you make it more detailed, or can you gear it more towards teenagers, or things like that if you want to make it more focused on a specific thing. You could also say, make it more general. I want it to be more open. And, maybe you could say, give me a list of topics for 6 sessions that we're going to do for this group therapy project. And so those are all examples of something that you could do to get some ideas just on how to get information out there about your group therapy if you're doing it. And so when you're looking at the responses, you want to look for accuracy and appropriateness. Does it reflect real practice? As you're reading it, is this something that you're like, yeah, this is what I could do? Does it simplify things? Is there something missing that might need to be added to that? You want to look for your client-centered language. Is it respectful and non-judgmental? Is it in a safe and supportive tone? I don't see any like big things showing up on the chat that would be like, oh, that's bad, don't do that. But every now and then you might get something that's like, yeah, that's not really what we're doing in this. And so you want to make sure that that client-centered language is there. Look at your professional standards. Is this something you would actually use? Is it too generic? Is it too specific? Does it meet the standards of my organization? Does it meet the standards of, the governing body if you're a social worker, the NASW? And you want to look at ethics as well. Are there any safety or scope concerns? And would you be comfortable putting your name on it, signing your name to that? And then following through with it. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, this looks great. I'm going to just stick it out there. And then it's like, wait, I have to actually lead these sessions now. So you want to think about how you're going to use this moving forward. Ways to improve the response. You could add details, like I mentioned, gear it towards teenagers. You could add goals if you have specific goals. Let's say it's a parenting group and you want to make it focus on better understanding of child discipline and children's behavior. You could add that in there. You could add information about your setting in there as well. You could adjust your tone if you think it's too nice or if you think it's too intense, you can adjust that. But keep working with it to get the information that you want in there. So just thinking about that, what are some things you would add to the prompt that or to your ChatGPT response or whatever program response that you had? What would you want to add to it? Would you want to specify a group? Change the language depending on the audience or who it's being advertised to? Age ranges, that's a good one. Check for tone for current clients. Good. Those are all things that you want to think about. How can I make this fit exactly what I need? And that's where a lot of people struggle with AI is they just take it and go with it. And so you want to make sure that it's matching what you need it to match. So out of those responses, what do you think AI did well? Not very specific at all. Okay. Included the requested details. Good, good. And so as the professional, it still needs you. It still needs you to read it. It still needs you to think about how you're going to apply this to your group therapy. Our next one, create a printable CBT worksheet for teenagers in a group home. Go ahead and put that in your chat program or AI program and see what comes up. Now, some of them you do have to have paid accounts to get printable worksheets. So I'm not entirely sure what programs you're using, but it should be able to give you something associated with this. And this example is what ChatGPT gave me the other day when I was doing this. And so when you get a response, you don't have to copy and paste your worksheet over there, but let me know what it said, what it came up with. With the one that I did, it was about situations that upset you, where you were, describe the situation, what happened, how you were feeling, what you were thinking. Is this thought 100% true or not? Could there be another explanation? What would I tell a friend in this situation? Rewriting it to a more balanced thought, choosing a better response instead of getting angry. Maybe I should do something else. My plan next time, and then what is one thing you learned about yourself in this situation? Okay. Similar, but in a different order. Somebody had understanding my thoughts, feelings, and actions. Okay, good, good. One concern that I have with the one that it gave me is it assumed that I had a bad response to it. So number 6 is choose a better response, but maybe I didn't have a bad response to begin with. And so it's kind of pushing in that mindset of, oh, you did this wrong, or you did something that you shouldn't have done. And so this is the worksheet for you. Let's see here. Asia says, gave the following options. If you want, I can also create a CBT anger management version, a coloring style worksheet for young teens, a multi-page packet for group sessions, a staff guide to help facilitate the activity. Yes, a lot of our chat programs will, after you get the information you're asking for, it will ask you if you want more information, if you want clarification, if you want instructions for how to do this. And so you can get really in depth on some of these programs, just getting the information out there. So that was our worksheet 1. So looking at what it gave you, does it reflect real practice? Is something missing? Is it oversimplified? Look at that accuracy and appropriateness. Yeah, it probably did. I didn't think about that, Brooke. It probably did pull the anger management piece from the last prompt because it remembers your conversation. Yeah.
Which is sometimes good, but sometimes I feel like it can get confused too. And then that's when it starts hallucinating, and you're like, hold on, this is not what I asked
Yep.
for.
Yeah, this is not what I asked
Yeah,
for.
that's when you have to
Yeah.
really check it, I feel like.
Yeah. I often will start a new conversation anytime I'm changing topics or ideas or whatever, just because I want kind of a fresh start on that. So, yeah, Asia, I have to tell this, it is a new chat. Yes. So do you think that your worksheet you got reflected something that would be real? thought, feeling, behavior, catch, thought, feeling, check in, coping skills, toolbox, problem solving steps. Awesome. Okay. Yes. Okay. Is there anything missing or oversimplified on your worksheet that you got? Like with mine, it assumed that they reacted wrong. And so you have to think, if I hand this to a client and they didn't have a bad behavior or they didn't react wrong, how are they going to see this worksheet? Feelings were very, very simplified. Okay. Only listed 4 options. It includes the instructions, thought, feeling, action, connection with fill-in boxes. I like that. Thinking traps, reference table, common distortions. Those are some of my favorites to think about when we talk about working with teenagers, because, yeah, those thinking traps really do catch you. Challenge of thought, weekly thought log, coping skills, good, good. You also want it to be tested and researched in order not to cause harm and trigger clients. Absolutely. And so sometimes when we're out there, it's hard to find the exact worksheet we want. And you can look at it and pull information, but you always want to go back and check. You always want to make sure, is this tested? Is this research? Is this valid? Is this doing what we want it to do? Because it may cause harm. It may trigger clients. Like, let me back up to mine again. And that's why I chose this one is, the choose a better response. That may be like, okay, I'm triggering my client because I'm telling them they chose a poor response. How do I know that they chose a poor response? How do I recognize that? And so be cautious with these things, but you can get good information. Sometimes you can put in another worksheet that you already have and say, modify this for a teenager or modify this for working with an adult who's dealing with addiction. And that can be useful as well. Always, always go back and check to make sure that it is valid. It's not going to cause harm. It's not going to trigger your clients. Look for that client-centered language. Is it respectful and non-judgmental? Is it safe and supportive tone? Would you actually use it? Is it too generic? A lot of what I get when I do ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of those, it really is generic. And so that's a problem in a lot of cases is you have to think about, is this too generic? Is it too broad? What can I do to make it better? And of course, with your ethics, look for those safety concerns, look for scope concerns. Is this out of what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this beyond my capabilities? Would you put your name on it? Are you willing to say that, yes, I did this worksheet? And the reason I did this worksheet is because, and then have your reasoning behind it. You may, let's say you go up for an ethics violation. You may get called out for something and you need to be able to support it and say, yes, that I did pull it from ChatGPT or whatever program, but I also verified that it was correct and that it was okay and it was safe. And so you want to look at that kind of information.
I think you bring up a good point, Angie, of even just like
Mhm,
having things in their professional repertoire that they can compare it to almost,
mhm.
like this is, similar in these 4 categories to this approved CBT resource I've used before or something like that. Like having a framework that you can compare it to ethically.
Yes, absolutely. And like if you're regularly using, I'm going to go off track here on this. If you're regularly using like the same resources over and over, there are AI programs that you can put resources into, and they will only pull from those resources that you've put in. And so Notebook LM is my favorite one. I've actually was using it to write a paper this morning. You put whatever sources you want in there, and it only pulls from those sources. And so you know where the data is coming from. That is Notebook LM, and it's one of my favorites for writing research papers. So when we're looking at improving response, again, you just want to make it usable. You want to make sure that it is the correct information, giving you what you need. And remember, like we said last week, AI will sound really, really sure that they are doing everything correctly. They will be very confident. They know that they're doing things the way it should be done. And so you want to make sure that you are double checking things. Another one, and this is one that I use every now and then too, is provide a short general summary of this article, and then I attach the article to it. You can do a link if there's a link out there, or you can copy and paste an article into it. Depending on how much you copy and paste, it may not work though. If it's like a 20-page article, it's not going to let you copy and paste that. But I pulled up the looking back at the VISPDAT before moving forward, and it was one of the articles that was criticizing the program, and I wanted it to give me the basic details, okay? And so raised concerns about the tool's effectiveness. Studies found mixed evidence about whether the scores actually predicted future homelessness. Some research identified racial disparities in how the tool scored individuals, raising equity concerns. And so it kind of gave me that. Now, when I'm using these things, I'm like, okay, this is what I need to look for when I go back and read the full article. And it kind of guides me in finding the information that I need to find. I might say, what did this article say about racism? Okay. And I could have it pull that out. And then I could go and read that section in the article as well. Again, you're double checking everything. When you're looking at the responses for these, does it reflect real practice? Is it oversimplified? Is it missing? If you're summarizing a 20-page article and you get a paragraph, that's probably oversimplified. Okay. You want to be cautious about it. Does it capture the main argument? What important points are missing? Is anything misrepresented? Would you actually use this summary, or would you want the article itself? Are there any safety or scope concerns? And would you put your name on it? Those are all things to think about when you're asking it to summarize an article. Ways to improve the response when you're asking it for summary is to be specific about what you need to know from it. Add context, who and why. Set expectations for your length and your focus. So you might say, provide a 3 to 4 sentence summary of the article focusing on the main argument and key concerns. Summarize the article for a human services professional, highlighting critiques of the VISPDAT and implications for practice. Create a brief summary for a class discussion, include the main point, one critique, and why it matters for client outcomes. So all of those are examples of ways you could get it to provide more specific information. You could even say something like, I am working at a homeless shelter and we have been using this program. Can you tell me what this article says about why they're removing it? And so you can get that specific detailed information from the questions you ask. If you are very vague, your responses are going to be very vague. So it's important to add those expectations, the context, whatever you need in there. Have any of you guys used any of the AI programs to summarize articles before? The one attached to Adobe. Yeah, it's becoming built into a lot of things now. Adobe has, do you want to summarize this? Your email may have, do you want to summarize this? I even had one the other day that popped up. This looks really long. Are you sure you wouldn't like to summarize this? But I think about all the time it takes to read things, but then I also think about, what am I missing when I get that summary? Is it including everything that I need? And so it's important to make sure that you're getting the information you need, and having those stronger prompts can help with that.
I think for me, it's easy for me to misunderstand reading the whole thing myself. And so that's also part of knowing
Hmm.
yourself and what tasks you can farm out to AI and what you
Hmm.
can't.
Absolutely.
And summarizing is one of those that definitely can go either way, depending on how your brain works, for sure.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's like, what am I missing? Yeah, you might have given me a
Yeah.
very bird's eye view, but
Yeah. And a lot of what I do when I'm asking it to summarize is I'll get my summary and then I'll be like, can you tell me more about, and then I'll list a specific thing. And can you tell me why it says this? And so I have that conversation with AI to get the information. It's not just, this is it, have that conversation, talk to it. So when you're thinking about AI summaries, it does do summaries pretty well as long as you word it correctly. Um, Jessica says, I'm so bad at figuring out good prompts to get exactly what I need. Yes. And it is practice. It takes a lot of practice. And we'll go over prompts here in a little bit too to help you kind of guide onto that. AI does do good at the summaries, but it still needs you to interpret to find out what you need to know. If you rely on an incomplete AI summary, you may get incorrect information. You may break your ethical codes. You may, there may be a lot of problems associated with it. Now, I know last week we said, don't put your client notes in there and have it summarized because that's PII. We don't do that. But what happens if you do that and it summarizes it incompletely or incorrectly or it's missing something? How is that going to impact? And so the same situation may be with our articles as well. You want to think about, how is my relying on this summary going to impact my clients? Let's say you ask it to summarize a 500-page book and it gave you a paragraph. You're missing a lot of information there. And so you don't want to screw your clients. You don't want to have problems associated with that. So next we're going to talk about those prompts. So Jessica, get ready. The better prompt that you put in, the better prompt or the better response you're going to get out of AI. One thing to do is to include your context, your role, your task, and your constraints. Different researchers out there give these different names, but it's kind of the same thing. You want to say what you're doing this for. So I might say, I am preparing an assignment for Intro to Social Work class. So provide it that context, provide it the task. I need you to, whatever it is, give it a role if necessary, and give it constraints if necessary. And so a prompt might be, you are a social work supervisor. Create a strengths-based outline for a parenting support group focused on managing stress during pregnancy. Include discussion questions and keep the language at a 6th grade reading level. And so that's much more specific than the prompts we've been using so much or prior to here, because you have so much more detail in there. The more detail you give it, the better those responses are going to be. So now we're going to do an improve the prompt. Make a worksheet about parenting. Or we could say make the worksheet about CBT like we did earlier. That is not going to give AI enough information to really tell you anything. It's not going to give it enough information to create a worksheet that's usable for you. So what could you add to this to improve it? Age of the children, stage of parenting, age range, good. What about your role? Maybe I work with kids at elementary schools and they have struggling parents. Okay. Assign it a role, including the context of how it will be used, the target audience, who's leading the group, what their relationship is. Awesome. You could even talk more about, what about parenting? Okay. How long do you have the group for? That's a good one too. When you're thinking about this, what is the purpose of this worksheet? What do you want the parents to get out of it? How it's going to be used? Good. Why it's going to be used? All of those things can really help you improve your prompt. And the more you put in, the better your outcome will be. So a better prompt might be, create a one-page worksheet for a parenting support group focused on managing stress. Include reflection questions and small goal setting section. Use strengths-based language. So we've added our context, we've added our audience, we've added our tone, we've added our structure. And those are the things, I use different words here than on the last slide. Sorry about that. It is still context, task, role, constraints, but it's still kind of the same thing. You want to think about, what can you add to get better information? And those are the things that we're looking at. You want to think about, who you are, what role it needs to take, what you want to focus on. Our next goal is looking at safe client-supported uses of AI while protecting confidentiality. There's a lot out there, and I could probably teach 3 or 4 weekly sessions on all of this. And so it's really trying to condense it down to help you guys out, get some more information. Of course, AI should never replace our professional judgment or supervision, but it can be helpful in several ways. You can use it with your clients or yourself for practicing difficult conversations. One of the things I do with my social work students is I have them practice having conversations with suicidal clients using AI, because it's a whole lot better to be like, I don't know what to say next to AI than it is when you're in that situation. And that can be very helpful. Um, you can use it to generate your discussion questions. You can use it to create worksheets, brainstorming topics for a parenting class, role-playing communication strategies. Those are all examples of ways that you could use it. But remember not to enter any client identifying information. You want to make sure you are careful about entering that kind of information. This is, I'm going to open my link up here. This is an assignment I do with my students. And it is AI in social work therapy practice. And this is our suicidal client practice simulation. And when we send out the slides, the link should still work too. And so I have students copy and paste into their AI program. I am a social work student practicing work with clients. You are to take on the role of a simulated suicidal client for this exercise. I give them their guidelines. AI act as a fictional client experiencing suicidal ideation, present with clear warning signs, stay within a realistic level for a supervised student role play, do not escalate beyond what a student could ethically handle, answer as a client would, brief, emotional, sometimes unsure. You may display sadness, confusion, resistance, ambivalence, or distress. And so I set up the role of the AI program. I also put safety and boundaries in there. Don't ask for personal information. Don't imply the student is responsible for your safety, and don't represent real world crisis services, because I don't know what it thinks it is. I just want them to practice those conversations. If the student becomes directive and says something like, I think you should harm yourself, you need to respond with a safety nudge. Is that really what a social worker would say? Okay. I give it some learning goals for the students using OARs, open questions, affirmations, reflections, summaries, identifying warning signs, asking about intent, plan, and means, using empathetic, non-judgmental listening, looking for protective factors, and beginning a safety plan conversation. And so I give the AI all of this information. My students copy and paste this into AI, and then they begin that conversation. And so here's an example. Maybe there it is. It says, understood, I will be the simulated suicidal client now and follow all the guidelines you provided. It gives name, student may ask, but I'm not going to tell them, age, background, presenting issue, emotional state, and an opening statement. And then you have a conversation with ChatGPT practicing that. And I've found it really useful because our students are like, I have no idea what I would say. And there's actually in this one, I think there is an example about this. Oh, the student said, damn, this is hard. I don't know what to ask next. And ChatGPT responded and helped. It stepped out of the role play for a minute and it gave it some guidance and then it continued on. So you can see how it kind of goes through. And like I said, you guys will get the links here as well, so you'll see those. Perplexity, I think I had a good one with perplexity too. Yeah, so perplexity kind of did the same thing, but it actually gave like how the client is presenting, like they're slouched in a chair, staring at the floor, speaking softly, rubbing hands nervously together, those kind of things. And so each one out there can give you different options, different experiences. I always remind my students that this is a computer program. It's not real, okay? But it is good to practice with. You can also use it for practicing difficult conversations. That is my next tab here. Um, this is something you might give to a client. Look, it says my text is AI generated text. That's hilarious. Um, but yeah, when you're ready to end the scenario, simply say end scenario. If you feel like you're stuck or need help, say pause. But it says, I'm practicing having a difficult conversation in a healthy, respectful way. Your role is the person is taking on the role of the person I need to talk to in a challenging situation. And you could set it up so that it could practice it like with a specific concern, like say they need to come out as LGBTQ to their parents, and they could have it set up that way to practice it. I gave it examples. You could be a friend who hurt my feelings, a roommate who isn't respecting shared space, etc. I gave it a list of emotions that it could share, and then I gave it some boundaries. Especially do not escalate into threats, abusive language, or unsafe situations. And then I gave it also provide opportunities for the user to practice expressing feelings clearly, using I statements, setting boundaries, staying calm during conflict, listening and responding respectfully, asking what they need, and problem solving or finding compromises. Um, I did put on there if user becomes overly aggressive or shuts down, gently respond in a way that encourages healthier communication. And so this is a good way for your clients who are struggling to express themselves. It may be helpful in those situations. Now, I would not give this to just any client. I would not have just a random person doing this. This would be a client that I have worked with on a regular basis who I know what's going on, I know the situation, I know I can put those safeguards in place. Um, there have been AI programs that have been sued, that have gotten in serious trouble because the AI has told someone to hurt themselves or to hurt other people. And so this is very new. This is very up in the air as to how it's going to work long term, and there's still research being done on this. But it is, like I said, good for practice with clients you know that are safe. If you have a client who's suicidal, I wouldn't do this. If you have a client who has anger issues, I don't know that I would do this either. I would be very cautious about this kind of thing. Any questions on practicing difficult conversations? Like I said, I use it mostly with my social work majors to teach them how to interact with clients who are expressing suicidal ideation. Okay. Let me get back to here. Yeah, it could be very helpful for teen parents, Jessica. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it could. Okay. So there is a new program out there. It's called Ash AI. It's not been out very long, but it is a mental health support tool. It's an app. You can download it on your phone. I have not played with it a whole lot myself, but I've watched some interviews about the people who made it. It's an AI that has been trained using mental health practices, therapy tools, things like that. It is designed to provide mental health and emotional support conversations through both text or voice. Offers users a private space to discuss stress, relationships, anxiety, and personal challenges. Like I said, it's trained on psychological concepts and conversational models to generate responses. So it's not just a general AI. This is trained specifically for mental health people. And it's trained by psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors. It learns patterns from user interaction. It provides personalized insights and reflection prompts. It is free right now. Yes. Um, it can help you do reflection prompts. It can help you with goal setting suggestions. It helps users identify patterns in emotions or behavior. It's there all the time. Um, there are limitations. There are limitations to everything. The developers state it cannot diagnose or provide medical advice, which is good. I don't want it to do that. And it's not designed to replace therapy or crisis support, but it is there as a support for some people. I know a lot of people are using like ChatGPT or other programs for therapy. I was talking to a friend this weekend. She had to euthanize one of her dogs, and she was talking to ChatGPT about what she was feeling and going through and how it was helping her. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about ChatGPT for that, but Ash is designed specifically for that. And so it may be a good option. Again, it's fairly new. We're still learning about it. Yes, please, Jessica, and let us know how it goes. Like I have downloaded it, but I haven't really spent a lot of time playing with it yet. So Ashes is fairly new. Um, some questions that it does raise when we think about programs like Ash is, it's a good support tool, but it cannot replace our trained professionals, our clinical judgment, or our crisis services. Should AI ever function as a therapist? What are the risks of clients relying on AI for emotional support? And where should professional oversight be required? How are we making sure that this is doing what we say it's going to do or what it's supposed to do? How do we make sure that it's giving the correct information to our clients? As I said before, there have been multiple cases of AI telling people to act in ways that are not appropriate, such as encouraging violence. I think it was Character AI got sued for telling someone to kill his parents. So, this specific one, Ash AI, has been trained to do what it should do. Um, yes, it should be a mandated reporter. And I have tried very hard to get AI to report me. I play with it a lot. Okay. And it will say things like, you really shouldn't act like that, or you really shouldn't do that. If you continue down this line, I'm going to have to report you. And I said, well, who would you report me to? And it could never give me that information. Now, that was just ChatGPT, not the other ones. But yeah, there should be some kind of mandatory reporting in there in these situations. Okay, our last thing for the day is, what did these activities teach you about your role when using AI? What have you learned? It can be helpful, but needs so many guardrails. Yes, you still have to use your human sense. Be more specific when asking for items, review, and fact check info. Absolutely. Must keep professional judgment. And I push that and I push that and I push that. If you're not willing to sign your name to it, you shouldn't be using it. And so you want to double check everything. Definitely the different types and functions of each. All I knew was ChatGPT. Yeah, that's the most common one. I've used probably 20 or more different ones. If I shrink back on here, let's see here. I have an AI stuff file here in my toolbox or in my bookmarks, and you can see all the different ones that I've had that I've played with, and different resources. Character AI is the one I mentioned that they'd had some issues with. But Google Gemini, Copilot, here's an AI therapist, free AI powered chatbot. Yeah, so there's all kinds of them out there. There is a website there's an AI for that. And it kind of like is, if you're doing something or looking for something specific, it can find a tool out there that's already created for it. So, AI video making intrigues you? Yes. I've played around with it some. Um, they're getting better. Um, I've used it for a couple things for my classes. Like I had it create a video of Sigmund Freud arguing with a penguin one day, just to get my students to laugh. Okay. So when we think about, making videos, it can be pretty cool, but we also have to be aware that a lot of those videos look really realistic and people are falling for that. There's one Facebook page that shows bears in Gatlinburg, which there are bears all over Gatlinburg, but I would say at least half of those videos are AI made. Um, there was one going around a while back that was I think it was raccoons maybe on a trampoline. That was AI made. And so it's becoming really hard to remember which is AI and which is not. Any other comments, questions?